action, which is awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the extraordinary honor to be speaking with Jason Harrell, the bartending therapist, and of course, other things too. But how you doing, Jason?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Ben.
Absolutely. It is totally my pleasure. Let's jump right in.
Mm-hmm.
What is your story?
I mean, I'm 37, so it's kind of a long story. And, I wrote a book, The Bartending Therapist, as people have come to know about me. So the best way to kind of describe like my story is that whenever I have to make a choice in life, I kind of honestly think if I was watching a movie, what would I want this character to be doing? Would I want to be watching a movie of the guy that goes to school and becomes an accountant? Or would I want to watch the movie of the guy that goes to school and becomes a sportscaster? Would I want to see about the guy that stayed and lived in the same hometown in North Carolina his whole life, or the guy that just packed up everything and left the day after Christmas and moved to Los Angeles? Obviously those are the things that I did, but I did grow up in a small town in North Carolina, like 10, 15,000 people. It was, parents were together, lived in the country, worked as a stable boy as a kid. Played basketball, was a standout all-state athlete in basketball and soccer. I won't say that I was a great student. I just didn't have to work at it. So I did as little as possible and still got to go to college. And I kind of figured out pretty early what I wanted to do, which was fortunate. I wanted to be a sportscaster because, well, I wanted to play in the NBA. But I'm 6'3" and white. It's not the pedigree. So the next best thing was being a sportscaster. So I went into that, and I had a lot of breaks that I worked very hard to get, and was really kind of pushy about it. But they are the ones that kind of like gave me a lot of early success. So like I came home my freshman year at college. And I've been looking into like taking the early broadcasting classes. And I told my parents, I was like, yeah, I'm going to come home and work on the radio station. In my hometown, like being on that radio station was a big deal. That was like our local celebrities. And they were like, yeah, sure, you're going to get a job. So I showed up and I walked into the program director's office, and I gave him my resume, which is really just my report card. And I said, I want to do whatever it takes to work on the radio station. He was like, we don't have anything. Leave me alone. So I came back the next day, and he was like, didn't I see you yesterday? I was like, I'll work for free. He's like, we don't have time for you. And then I came back the next day, and finally, kind of a lot like Les Brown, which I didn't know who Les Brown was back then, but that persistence. And I got my shot, and then I got to do actually be on the radio and do the pop radio, like 102.3, the double Q, your number one hit music station. And
you still got it.
I wouldn't say I got it, but it's funny because in your mind you have this vision of what it takes to be like a great sportscaster, broadcaster, and you think like you have to be that way. But the truth is, like, it's the worst thing that you can do. It's kind of faking it. Like I can never be Jim Nance. I cannot talk about the azaleas and welcome to the master. I don't have that voice. My friend actually won the Dan Patrick sound-alike contest to sound like Jim Nance. Like I can't impersonate like that, nor would you want to. You want to kind of have your own voice. So then the next summer I went to CNN. I was the youngest reporter to ever air a story at CNN. I did a story on all the high school players going pro in 2001. And so there again, like I'm getting these breaks, but like I get a phone call from the producer of CNN SI, which is where I wanted to intern. And they said, we were going to give you the spot, but we miscounted. We don't have one, but there's this producer that might take you in this department. So this guy, Alan Duke, he calls me up, and it wasn't even an interview. He was like, I want to see how bad you want it. If you're here Monday morning at 10 a.m., you got the internship. If not, if you're a minute late, don't even bother. And so I was living in North Carolina. This was a Friday, and I was still in my dorm room. And so I had to pack up everything and then go Monday morning and show up in Atlanta. And I'd never been in a big city or anything. But that's what I did. And he told me this was an opportunity where you're going to be able to be on air if you're good enough. And I was good enough and got my first story. And so 19 and being on CNN, like, it was pretty surreal. And then the broadcasting thing just kind of, there's a lot of stories, but I want to get to your questions. And then I got to a point actually where at 24, I've been doing it for 6-7 years, and I was just like, you know what? I've done everything. What's the next challenge? Started bartending and doing some acting, moved to New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina had other plans. So that kind of, I lost everything in Katrina, regrouped in North Carolina, drove out to Los Angeles on a whim, basically. And then started bartending, acting, had some more trouble. I was young. I actually got a DUI. And so I'm like 3 weeks into LA, crashed my car, and I'm riding my bicycle in the rain. And you don't think it's supposed to rain in Southern California until like you're forced to ride a bicycle. And it's like the universe is just like, let's see how much this kid can actually take.
Let's pack it on.
Yeah. So I kind of cleaned up my act and was bartending, acting. Started doing magic because I was so bored because I didn't have any money and I couldn't go on dates because I was on a bicycle. And I kind of went into that world as a kind of, it wasn't like a foundation to do anything. It was just to kind of keep me busy. And but it gave me a lot of connections. And that turned into a professional poker career for 7 years. And then same thing, I reached like a really high point in poker and just kind of walked away one day. Flew down to Peru, sat on top of a mountain in Machu Picchu and said, you know what, I'm going to do something different. And, the last, I guess, 3-4 years, I've been like an actual entrepreneur. I've always been kind of entrepreneurial, but I envisioned exactly what my life I wanted to look like at this point, and now I've just kind of created that, and found different ways to make money, and pretty much I would always say I have everything and nothing to do today, so that's a good place to be, I think.
You mentioned some of those broadcasting stories.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely want to hear those.
You're interested in that? Are you sure?
Yeah, let's hear it.
So it's funny. There are things, you're 24, which is an interesting age because that was a very pivotal age for me. Like that was Katrina, DUI, and then like best worst years of my life. So as a broadcaster, I did sports because I hated news and weather. Of course, like news, you get your big break because there's a shooting or something like that. It's sad. You got to put a microphone into some mother of someone that's lost her kid. Sports, your big break is, you're covering the Carolina Panthers and they go to the Super Bowl. Let's go to the Super Bowl. NASCAR and Daytona, you go to Speed Week. I was there when Tiger won the Masters before. And there's that famous shot where he chips in and the ball just rolls on the Nike sign and then clicks in. I was there, like things like that. The biggest thing for me in broadcasting was I wanted access. And while I don't do broadcasting like that as a professional anymore, like I still have a lot of friends that are in it. So like I'm still like a guest correspondent, like on radio shows. Um, the last 4 years, I've gone to the Super Bowl and done interviews for Media Day. And so having that background, even though like I don't necessarily make my career in it, has given me access, and like I know how to get in touch with people. Um, Being a journalist, I mean, if you look at the history of journalists, like they're the ones that get like on the front lines of war. Like I would, don't sign me up for that, but they can get further insurged into different situations because they want to get the publicity in the story. So once you kind of get that mentality, and you've already obviously started learning it, um, by getting in touch, like you're so lucky that you have like Instagram. Now think back in 2002 when I didn't have any of that. Like I would sit there and talk to some people and be like, "Do you have an email that I can reach you?" And it's like, "Oh, I have it. I never look at it."
You may have had to pick up the phone and actually call somebody.
All the time. And I remember high school football was the worst because on Friday nights we would cover high school football games, and these high schools are just in random small towns, and this is in South Carolina, and I'm using MapQuest, and then there's sometimes where you just had to throw it out the window because the maps were so bad, and just kind of be driving and looking for like the Friday night lights. We called it using the force. Um, it was amazing, but then like Super Bowl, um, Major League playoffs. I interviewed LeBron after his first ever professional basketball game, like one on one. Like that was amazing. He's my favorite player, and it's love him or hate him. The reason I love him is because he did that interview when he was 18 with me. Like I have a personal reason, and I'm like, he didn't have to do that. Like he's a cool dude. He's my guy, and it's really cool. The one thing I would say, because I watch, you always do your homework, and I did my homework on you. Like you're interviewing me, and I'm sitting there like trying to figure out like what's this kid all about. Um, Always do your homework, know exactly who you're talking to, and you don't have to know everything. Like you don't need to know about my personal life or anything. But if you can find like interesting little nuggets, for example, I met Gary Vaynerchuk and interviewed him, and so I did all this like inside research. Like I didn't want to talk to him about like crushing it and no sleep and TGIM and all. So my question to him, and knowing that I only had a minute and a half, 2 minutes, was what's something that's interesting to me that I really want to know that I could kind of benefit from the knowledge, but also would be something kind of cool. And so I asked him, I said, if you had the opportunity to speak at Jets, well, I don't know what it's called, but at Jet Stadium with it completely full, would you rather do that or would you rather have dinner with Walt Disney? Now, that does a couple of things. One, he's a huge Jets fan. Two, like he's never spoke in front of a large audience like that, like a live audience. So that's tapping into his vanity. But then Walt Disney's impossible because he's dead, but that's like his hero. Most people don't even know who, his hero is, like I didn't. And so like that was, and he's like, whenever you get that guy that you're interviewing, not being polite, but like literally you can tell when it's like, whoa, that was a shit. Let me think about this, that, and that's when you feel really good as a journalist.
Why, from an early age, did sports call to you? Like, why was that so important to you? Why has that played such a big part of your life?
I mean, I'm a guy. I'm in the South. It's almost as simple as that. Like my dad, I'm 6'3". My father is 5'6". So it wasn't, especially growing up, it wasn't because my dad was like this standout athlete. He was not. We bonded over in North Carolina. It's Tobacco Road to Duke, Carolina. That rivalry. Michael Jordan grew up an hour from where I grew up. I played it against his high school, you know, so basketball was really important. Um, kids grow up playing soccer to make friends and stuff. I was pretty good, so I played in high school. I used that to train for basketball season. Um, it's just what you do. Like there was no like I saw my first 3-point shot or dunk and was like no. I was playing before I even knew what was on TV. But I do remember the first professional game I ever remember watching was Michael Jordan and Larry Bird in the playoffs, and Jordan went for 60 something, and the Bulls lost. And that was like my first real memory of NBA, and of course, like the money, the the lifestyle. Like you want to play the kids' game. The only problem is everyone's told you can't play anymore. I still play in the Venice Men's League out here in LA, so I still got it.
When you started to make that transition from being an athlete to being a broadcaster and getting into that space, how did your identity change? Like how did you view yourself, and what was the evolution of that?
I mean, there really isn't. Like I said, there are very, 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 very few people that decide when their career is over. Some are told when they're in middle school. Like, this ain't for you, buddy. And then you got a guy like Michael Jordan, really the second time, like was able to walk away from the game when he decided. But even when he was with the Wizards, he got to a point where it's like he couldn't do it. Kobe, towards Achilles, same thing. So usually it's a physical thing that keeps you, um, whether it's an injury or just an ability. And that was me. I mean, I walked on to my school, and I played for like a month and a half, 2 months, and then got hurt, needed surgery. It was never, and it wasn't depressing because it's not like I can imagine when Zion Williamson got hurt this year, um, and he's the number one pick in the draft. Like there was a serious fear, like, oh my God, like what if I had done something really, and then like to be on that level, that's got to be tough. To be on the level of, like low end Division I walk on, it was more like, when am I going to wake up anyways and realize the truth? And like I said, it's the good thing about it was that I chased basketball too long. Like I should have known in high school, like there was just no chance. But um, I always kind of chase things a little too long that are a little far fetched. Being a sportscaster is just as ridiculous of a notion as being a professional athlete. You know, I got the same, like, even my parents are like, yeah, you're going to be on the local radio station, as if that was like me being Larry King, or SportsCenter. But to them, it was. And then when I was on TV, like when I did my story on CNN, like social media wasn't what it was. There was no social media. So like when people would sit there and see me, they were like, did I see you on CNN? Like, yeah, you did. Like it was pretty crazy. And then they think you're rich, which is even worse. There's no money in this game at all.
So when you were playing, did you not see yourself as a basketball player? Like who did you see yourself as?
No, um, no, I didn't identify as anything. Like I was good, better than most, but not enough to identify and say like, oh, I'm a basketball player. Like I was just a dude. Now when I went pro in poker, I was a professional poker player. Like that was, I think that's part of why I went into that too, is that it was kind of like, here's an opportunity where I can live out this lifestyle that I wanted as a professional basketball player, but like poker was actually easier. Um, One, anyone can be a professional poker player. You really, just have to say, hey, I'm a professional. Nobody's going to question you. I mean, I made my predominant living from playing poker. I played full time, um, and I saved my body. Like I know a lot of pro athletes and their bodies are just crushed. Like even like at your age, like 24, 25, they'll they'll be debilitated for the rest of their life. Poker, not so much.
Unless you're doing it wrong. Which
Well, you can debilitate. Most of them end up, it's because of drugs and alcohol that they debilitate their body in poker. So,
So it seems like you were going along, you felt like a dude who just happened to play basketball. Then it seems like you felt like a dude who was broadcasting. And then it seems like you got into the poker game and you're like, all right, now I'm a professional poker player.
mm-hmm.
So how has that evolved today? I mean, what do you see yourself as?
So, I nothing. I mean,
There got to be something.
No, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to like put me in a box and label me, right? Like,
No,
like
I'm just
no,
trying to
I'm
understand.
not. No. Well, I'm not saying you as in like Ben, cool it. I'm saying like in general, like you actually talking to Grant Cardone, and he was talking about Jesus, and he said the whole "I am." Like, so I don't. It's hard for me to answer that question in that like before I could identify, like when I was on the high school basketball team, I'm a basketball player. High school soccer team, I'm a soccer player. I'm a sports caster, like things like that. Now, I'm just a guy that does everything that he wants to do and finds out ways to make money doing it. Like I wrote my book and it hit #1 on Amazon as a bestseller. Like that was a cool day. It was a cool day though. It wasn't a week, a month, a year. Like I looked up and I was like, whoa. And then the next day it was still #1. I was like, 2 in a row. And then the next day I was sitting there, I was like, what in the hell am I going to do today? And I made money from the book, but not really, not money I've wanted to make. But I wanted to write a book and I monetized it, I wanted to own a house and have my dream house, and I get it. And then I wanted to, like, I kind of got tired of it real quick. It's like, I bought this condo, and it had an ocean view here in LA. And for like 3 weeks, I was like, man, this is exactly what I've always wanted. And then I was playing poker and I was traveling all the time. And I was like, I'm never here. Why am I paying $3,000 a month for this place? Like the view's cool, but like I'm wasting money. So then I start Airbnb-ing it, and now I have an Airbnb business. like it was. I was always just trying to think like, how can I like do something that I enjoy? Like, so I kind of like that aspect of real estate. Now I make a lot of money doing that. I like social media. How can I make money doing social media? Like, so I started a social media company. I like doing magic. Can I make money from magic? Sure can. I like playing poker. Can I make everything? I always think like, how can I make money? And so so what does that make me become? Am I the magician? Am I the poker player? Am I the Airbnb? I'm all these things, but there's, Renaissance man. Maybe that's what my name is. Maybe that's my title, a Renaissance man. If they still have those, that's kind of old fashioned.
So once you stepped out of poker, what was the chronology of the different businesses that you started or were a part of?
So I was, the World Series of Poker is 60 different events over a month and a half, 2 months. Most people just see the one on TV. So I was halfway through my schedule, and I had spent the last 2, 3 years really just, I was in the top, when I retired, I was in the top 1% of poker players in the world. And I was trying to get into the top like 10% of the 1%. And in order to do it, I just had to like play online like all the time. So I was playing 5, 6 tables, 10, 12 hours a day, every day. And I think I played probably like 10 million hands like within a year or two. And then it just burnt me. Like I was just done. And I was in the middle of the World Series, which is supposed to be like the best time of the year. And I couldn't, it just wasn't working for me. I was playing fine, but my head just was wrong. And I looked up, I was like, I saw like some YouTube ad for Machu Picchu. And I was like, maybe this is some spiritual message. Flew the next day, ended up on the mountain, and I just sat there and I was like, I'm done. Like I had this, so I wanted to write this book called The Hand You're Dealt, and it was life as a poker, like life lessons from a poker player. And I believe that poker is the greatest example in a game form of life, and it's a great teacher, like how to invest, how to calculate risk analysis, all these things. Um, and so, in order to publish this book, I felt like I needed to be credible. And in order to be credible, I needed to have a world title. And I never got a world title. I won a lot of tournaments, and I got the final tables of world championships, but I didn't have that ring or that bracelet or that trophy. And because of that, like I felt like I couldn't write that book, because who am I? That's how the Bartending Therapist came about. Because after Peru, I said, you know what? I'm going to write this book anyways. I got to be credible. And so then I thought about going back to school and getting a degree in psychology just so I was in the admissions office with the dean at Pepperdine. And he's like, so how long have you wanted to be a psychologist? I was like, never. I was like, I just need those letters so that I can write my book and people will read it. And he's like, I don't know that we want students like that. I was like, yeah, you want my money. So then the Bartending Therapist, it came to me one day, and I was like, I can be a therapist. People treat bartenders like it, and that's my vehicle. And so I wrote the book, and I met a guy. His name's Matt Posius. He's from Lithuania. He's like 18 at the time, and I knew that I needed to learn social media, and I knew that going and reading a book would be outdated, and going to like any kind of class like UCLA or something would be a waste of time. And so I started looking. Do you know who Tai Lopez is? I'm assuming.
Uh-huh.
So I was one of Tai Lopez's first ever. I was the first person to ever finish in 67 steps. Like if you know his like initial program. Ty's actually from Clayton, which is 20 minutes from where I grew up. His best friend Zach, like I kind of connected. And so Matt was being mentored by Ty. I met Matt, and Matt was doing a coaching thing, which, Eastern European kid, 18 years old, coaching, I was very skeptical, but we were talking, and he said, and I told him, I was like, I have this book, I want to put it out and then become like a social media star. And he said, no, do the social media thing first, and then when you put your book out, like everyone will buy it. And just that one like nugget, he helped me in a lot of other things, but that was like huge from an 18-year-old kid. He's totally right. And so I started doing social media, and then I released the book, and it does really well.
Wait, I want to drill down real quick into the social media part.
Uh-huh.
When you say you did social media, like what were some of the things you did? How did you grow your social media? And
So this is like 3 years ago, and it sounds like nothing, but 3 years ago on social media is like, I'm a grandpa now. So in the beginning, I was just I created the Bartending Therapist handle for Facebook and Instagram. Just to give you an idea, when I started, Ty Lopez didn't have an Instagram page. Like, what he did was, of course, he's pretty much paid for his following, not for the followers, but like all his giveaways and stuff. So I was just posting like motivational type content, and then I started doing my own videos because I have a broadcasting background, decent at it. Started doing like interviews as well, not in a podcast form, but just if I like met someone interesting or whatever, and I kind of ran like everybody was doing that. Like when Ty Lopez first came out, and like had his cell phone out here in my garage, and, like he would do all these like interviews with famous people just holding his phone, and I was like, that actually works. When I go to the Super Bowl, the last 4 Super Bowls, I'm interviewing all these players and celebrities with my cell phone, holding it out just like that, and people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm looking at them with their big cameras. I'm like, you're crazy. And it's funny because one of my best friends, he's a sportscaster, and he does the Packers like play-by-play for in Spanish, and he's a sports anchor. And we went to Broncos Panthers Super Bowl, and he's trying to get all these interviews, and he's just like, you're gonna do what? Like, you're gonna just get these interviews with your cell phone? He's like, I don't know, man. But he was just impressed that I got the credential. But we go to dinner afterwards. I was like, how many interviews did you get? He's like, we got like 7. He's like, how many did you get? I was like, 27. Like, I interviewed everybody. And he's just like, and it was like one-on-one, like me and him in the same shot. Like most people were like getting, we call it, cattle call. Like everyone, oh yeah. But I got one-on-one with everybody. So I was doing like these Facebook videos. They went viral, got millions of views. That was back when like you could do a Facebook ad like video and if you put $100, like you could get 100,000 views like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And I had a bunch go viral, and then someone ended up hacking my Facebook and deleted all my content. So then I started from scratch, but it was like kind of too late at that point. It wasn't too late, but I couldn't salvage. So like, no longer was it like $100 to get 100,000 views. You still had to have good stuff though. So I started doing that. Was just putting out motivational content, stuff I thought like the one thing I'll say, the bartending therapist, or my style of motivation, I'm pretty much like, I will call you out on your shit. Like I think I'm like this weird blend of like Gary, Ty. I'm nothing like Grant. Grant Cardone is just a different animal. Not one of they're all 3 are the same. They're just pillars, but like Ty is just like really calm and laid back, and Gary's just like hustle, hustle, hustle. It's like, no, like you gotta, like I don't agree with that. If I had to do everything all over again, honestly, and knowing what I know, I would have gotten a job at an airport, like for American Airlines or United. I would have done that. Not necessarily a flight attendant, but even customer service or baggage or something. And even though you don't make a ton of money, you get to fly around the world. Like, do you know if you could fly anytime you wanted, wherever? Do you know how many contacts you can make? How many connections? Like, I flew around the world last summer. In 11 days, I went to 7 countries doing like a little book tour thing, and I spoke at a conference in Europe. And literally 7 countries in 11 days. Started in LA, went to Japan, and then came back all the way full circle. it's like $40,000 worth of flights. You know, like you work for an airline, that's free. That's worth it, I think. You know, so I don't know if I kind of rambled there. I'm sorry about that.
All good. So, what is your main focus today?
What am I focused on today? Well, today was a big day, so I wanted to make sure I woke up in time to do your show. Um, I'm I'm trying to expand my Airbnb company. That's a little difficult here in Los Angeles because the rental market is really high, and of course, you can't just buy houses. Um, it's just really expensive, and the margins are kind of thin. I've got, you know what? I'm really kind of comfortable. I'm kind of just looking for that next thing. Like, how much do I want to scale? Because I don't. I travel so much, and I don't really have to worry about a whole lot, and I kind of like it. I got friends that are millionaires, like multi millionaires. Like my mentor is the number one realtor in the nation. For Remax. The man works 12-hour days. Like he never takes vacations. Like that's not uh, having that title doesn't mean anything to me. You know. So I do have a project that I'm working on where I want to buy an island and I want to put a bunch of like kind of have like my own private island resort. That's something that I'm working on. But for the most part, I'm just kind of living. Like I got a trip in 2 weeks down to South America. Um, yeah, I'm kind of in like more of a analysis. Like where exactly do I want to take this? I got a deal that if it goes through, then I thought about just backpacking for 3 months. Like I'm selling my condo, and well, I've got three places, so I'm selling one of them. And if the sale goes through, then I thought about just like I said, going spend 3 months, like start in like Panama and just Panama and Peru and Ecuador and Bolivia, and just work my way down.
It seems like you're not that motivated by money. I mean, I know you talked about like, oh, I can do different things and figure out how to make money, but it doesn't really seem like money is driving you particularly hard. What would you say is that driving factor?
It goes back to what I first said. Like, what if I'm watching the movie of my life? What do I want this character to do? You know, um, and literally every decision. That's why, like, I don't have ever, I never have a regret of like, man, I saw this hot girl in the bar. I wish I'd talked to her. I don't have that. Like, if I see that, if I ever feel that, I'm going to talk to that girl, unless I'm dating someone else. Like, I'm not that, I'm not that bad, but like, I, there are things that I am envious of people in life, but that I'm capable of doing. So like, I'd always heard like, people always put in profiles, like especially dating apps, like I'm the type of person I'll wake up and go to the airport and say, where are we going? Do you know how many people have you ever really honestly met that are like that? Like it's really
Zero.
now everyone says they want to do it, but I'm the guy that's actually done it. I've been on the phone at 4 a.m. talking to my friend in Chicago, and we do a lot of business together, anyways, and projects. And it's like 4 a.m. and I'm like, dude, like you're not getting this. Like I'm gonna meet. Let me go grab a flight, and I just jumped on a plane, went to Chicago for lunch. Like that's my life. Or we were talking about developing this resort, and he's like, well, my uncle's down in Barbados. He's got a place. 2 days later, like I'm on a plane to Barbados, didn't even know where Barbados was, like, and then I'm on the plane and I'm like 6 hours from Miami. What the hell is this place? But those are like I want to have like cool stories, and that's more motivating. You know, I've ridden in Lamborghinis. I'm 6'3". They're not comfortable, like, uh, like I said, the coolest or the craziest thing is like this place that I bought now. I bought an $800,000 townhouse in LA, and I like it was cool and it looks nice and like I can entertain. And I was like, the reason I bought it was so that I could split off the bottom floor and have like a 1 bedroom bath in the garage, and then have a separate entrance to the top so I could rent it out on Airbnb. You know, and I run into that where like people want their homes or they're like I'm very nomadic. Like I could literally pack everything that I own in my car. Now I got furniture and stuff for all my Airbnbs, but I don't need that. And I could be out tomorrow, but I don't need like the little knickknacks and like the perfect comforter and the duvet and you know, like get like when you go to Pier 1 and they got those sticks that you just put in the corner of the room. Like I don't get that. Mine's very, very, very simple, and I'd always rather travel than anything else. And LA's great because every time I travel, I usually only go somewhere for like 4 or 5 days max. Um, Actually, I take that back, 3 to 4 days, and then I try and do 2 places like for 3 days. And I always want to come back to LA, and it's like most people, LA drains them. Here, it like charges me back up. I'm like, I can relax in LA. So, yeah.
With all the things that you've done, what would you say have been the skills or the qualities, the values that you've had to deploy in order to be successful at them? Like, how have you been able to do the things that you've done?
There's two things. Uh, there's talking and being interesting, right? So this right here, like you're developing a really, really important tool that you will not see the effects until you're 10, 20 years down the road. I promise you in your 30s, um, even if you stop right now, because you've done it for what, a year or two, right?
Almost 3 years now.
Okay. If you stop right now, 10 years from now, you'll look back and like you'll still be using things that you got from this, and they'll be huge. My best friend in the world, he's a vice president of some school thing in North Carolina. He was a sportscaster too. He was way better than me actually. Like it's annoying, but he was a better like anchor. I was a better interview. Like I could always interview really well, and he like even now like he'll be doing stuff and he'll give speeches and talks, and like we never have understood what it's like to be scared to speak in front of crowd. Like we get it's like awesome. Like we're like, God, I hope there's like 10,000 people.
The more, the better.
Right. And it's because of that. The other thing is like learning how to research people and know who's in the room. You know, there is nothing worse, and it happens to me every year at the Super Bowl. And I go up and I'm like, "Hey Ben, are you all excited about the Super Bowl?" And it's like, "Yeah, my name's not Ben, my name's Ted." And it's because like I looked at my card and the number, I looked at the wrong number or the wrong. Now I'm looking at the St. Louis Rams or the LA Rams roster, number 34, and it's like, "Oh, that's Ben," but I'm actually looking at the Patriots 34, and that's like it stuff like that. But you learn how that's huge. But the interesting thing, I talk in my book, I talk about dating because who else knows dating better than bartenders, really, from what we see. Um, And you just have to figure out like ways, things that interest you, but that can be interesting. So, um, for example, magic, I was reading a book about a guy that was like a pickup artist, if you will, and he learned magic. He was a magician, and he used it, and that kind of was like what inspired me. I was like, wow, I can kind of do these things. I've done magic for tons of people, and it's got me in rooms, like, and then I can, then I have to dissociate, like, hey, I'm not an actual magician. I can just, this is just a hat I wear. This is what I really do, you know. Um, Whatever can get you, you know, access, and it's always going to be interesting. So that when, um, in compiling like cool stories, so like when we have SpaceX here in El Segundo. So whenever I meet someone from SpaceX, I've met Elon Musk. I've read Elon's books. I can talk intelligently on that. Um, I've read about like Stephen Hawking, black holes. Like I can have a conversation on their level. Um, the traveling, like it's funny because, especially like, uh, I kind of look at everything, especially business too, as like dating. Like you can compare every situation in business really to like dating. Like this is the first date. Like how do you get their number? And which is like getting a business card and stuff. And we have so much easy access now to people. Like it might even sound creepy, but like it's such an advantage. Like if you and I, met, and you were kind of telling me like real quick, like, oh, I'm this big time podcaster. I was like, oh yeah, you are, cool. And then like as soon as I got a chance, I would Google you and find out all this information about you, and not to use it against you, but like, so now I can be like, say you had some weird thing where you said like you like French bulldog puppies, you know. Now if I'm trying to like connect with you, I'd be like, it's like, yeah, man, like, my friend called me up and said that they got French bulldog puppies for sale. It's like, oh, I love that. Now
I do love puppies. I do.
well, you're not a bad person. But that all comes back from like broadcasting and journalism. Like, how do you find that story, and how do you find a story? I'll give you a little bit of critique, but like advice. You start out, from what I've seen, like almost always, what's your story, right? Find like a little bit, open that differently, because that's so broad. Like, but find out something that interests you and ask that about maybe their early life or something, because the when you interview athletes, they are so programmed. Both teams played hard. We just tried to put points on the board. Like it's always blah 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 blah. That's why I don't like doing it. But when I ask a kid, you know, um, what's that feeling like when you hear your name called on draft day? Like you're gonna get real, and as soon as you get real, that's gonna open everything else up. Like, and this, but this isn't. But you pretend like everything's an interview. In fact, it's a combination. So every time when I'm being interviewed like this, it doesn't. I'm just having a conversation with you. You know, when I'm doing the interview, it's actually it's harder. It's a different hat because you're also constantly thinking, well, where's this going to go? What's my next question? I always picture my best friend, Brian, and he's the sportscaster too. He's my best friend in the whole world. We talk every day. So whenever I'm doing an interview, it's as if I'm talking to him. And I used to, as a sportscaster, sometimes when I was like kind of flustered, I would literally pretend to call him on my cell phone, and just kind of have like leave him a voicemail sometimes, just because that cadence and that feeling Like as soon as I got that, then I knew like this is going to be authentic. I'm going to be real. It's not me talking like what the front back. I'm trying to be a sportscaster. You know, I interviewed Dan Patrick a year or two ago, and we were talking about that because you always ask, well, what do you want to tell people that want to be the next Dan Patrick? And when you know those people like Dan Patrick, it's always the same answer. Don't be the next Dan Patrick. Be the best you. He's like, I wanted to be Bob Costas. I can't be Bob Costas. He's like, Bob's amazing, but I can take things. My broadcasting mentor was Ernie Johnson. I talked to him for 2-3 years every month. Like I spent a lot of time with him. You know, I was very lucky to meet him. That was also a situation that I kind of forced my hand and snuck in through the back door and then took advantage of it. But back then, Ernie wasn't even the best broadcaster. You know, that was like 18 years ago. But I knew he had the style and the like exactly what I want. Find that. You know.
So it seems like a lot of the foundational skills that help you to get where you are and to get where you have wanted to go have been from the broadcasting and from doing really good research, understanding who you're in the room with, asking very targeted questions, and trying to be as aware as possible. Would you say there were any other pieces of your broadcasting or of the broadcasting skill set that are important?
So this is an interesting piece that for whatever reason I've always done. And I guess it's natural within me. No one taught me how to do this. And it'll also sound very lazy. How can I get so I always deconstruct everything. So I have this goal. Let me deconstruct it and find the easiest, fastest possible way to do it. Right. So, broadcasting is a lot like that. Like you have to put a show together. You have to map out like interviews and your scheduling. So if I go back when I was in high school, like I was an A/B student my whole life. Like I never had to study. It was just very easy. But when I got to high school, I knew that I needed to have like a decent GPA to get into college. Like my SATs like would take care of themselves. Like I knew I was just good at tests. So I couldn't fail a class for sure. But then I found out about the AP and the honors classes, which people were intimidated to take because that's for all the smart kids. But if I took an AP class, I would get a 6.0 for an A as opposed to a 4.0. Well, I didn't sit there and think, oh, I can have a higher than a 4.0 GPA average. How great would that be? I thought, wait a minute, I can get a C and get a 4.0? Bingo. So that's what I did. So now all these people are killing themselves in the AP and honors classes to get A's like they would for anything. And I am just doing nothing. I'm doing the bare minimum because I know that I can get a C, but it's still going to be a 4.0, So that was in high school. And then when I went to college, and after the radio thing, it was over for me in college. I was like, this is what I want to do. Like, and then especially after CNN, after I came back from CNN, I was speaking to senior level classes at my college, telling them how to be a broadcaster and what it takes. And I'm like 19, 20, like I learned so much and was so far ahead of my school. So I wanted to graduate early. And so I'm like looking and like everyone else is taking notes in class. I'm looking at this course curriculum schedule, trying to figure out like how to put the perfect schedule together so that I can get the most credits, double credit, and graduate early. And so it was this math formula I was trying to figure out. And so I ended up figuring it out and graduated early, and everyone was like, oh my God, did you have all these AP credits? Did you take tons of summer school? I was like, no, it's a math problem. You can figure it out, and you just make sure that every single thing you do was, was got the max value. So I'm hired in English, not because I love English, but because those credits doubled as elective credits. So like I could get it was just like this. That's how I've always kind of looked at it. Like, how can I solve this problem and finish it the fastest? Like Airbnbs now, like how can I furnish this place with nice stuff and get it really cheap? Well, we got like Goodwill and all these places, you know, I don't have to spend a fortune, and I put in my due diligence and find it, like.
So how did that relate back to maximizing your interviews and being the best at those?
Same thing, like just it was always just kind of being able to like quickly formulate like a plan, like, because when you walk into a room, um, especially like in a chaotic setting, post Super Bowl is like ridiculous, post bowl games, post game period, like, and you got to know where to go and who to get, like for the Carolina Panthers for the Super Bowl, everybody wants to get Jake Delhomme. He was the quarterback at the time. But we had like three guys that we knew we would get exactly what we needed. Like we would get that emotional like response, and not like the crap like, oh, it's a good game, whatever. Like, so like that was research that we had already had. And then so as soon as like the games, we're putting ourselves in position to like get these guys, no matter what happened. Um, yeah, I kind of got lost a little.
So, Jason, I want to thank you so much for coming on the interview today. Truly been a pleasure to spend this time with you, share this time with you. And I want to say thank you.
Yeah, man, it's been great.
Just have a few more questions for you, then we'll wrap it on up.
Let's do it.
What is your philosophy on developing deep, meaningful, and genuine connection with another human being?
All right. That's the question that you might want to start with, because you got me thinking. To the deep connection, what I think it is? I think there's a moment that you have with people, and especially if you want to keep that particular person in your life, because you don't get, it's 50-50. You don't get to decide, you know, completely. But like really, like truly, like looking someone in their eyes, like being slow and deliberate and 100% honest, and like, I don't know if you've ever had it, but I've had certain people in my life, especially when I was younger. So Brian, my dad's, my best friend, his dad is like a 3 or 4 star general in the Air Force. Like he's a bad dude, And I remember like as a kid, like, him like shaking my hand for, I don't even remember what the occasion was, but just that like firm handshake, but then like kind of pulling me in and like being that intense and being like, so proud of you. Like what you're doing is great. And like, like those moments, and maybe that's, in part where I got it from, but like when you actually call attention to that moment, and you don't have to think about it, where you say like, right here, right now, I want you to know, like, I care, and being completely vulnerable. That's, you take a risk, but like, you can't expect, the best thing is for you to take that risk first, take the first step. I don't wait for other people, like if I like a chick, like I'm going to text her that night when I get a phone number, like I'm not going to play these games. And but it's the same thing. If I'm like, if I want something, like I'm going to ask for it, you know? And you know what the best thing, I mean, this is a little different, but it's a good nugget for you. My first sports director, Jeff Hart in South Carolina, told me, because I was young and I was scared and I didn't want to piss anyone off. And he said, it is way easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. And he was talking about like interviews and like access and stuff. He was like, walk around as if you own everything. And it's so true. Like I've walked into football stadiums, and like my credentials hidden or it's in a jacket. But if you walk like you're supposed to be there, it's so true. Like people don't question it. Or, excuse me, sir. It's like I'm busy. I'm on my way to a meeting. Like, oh, okay. Or like I go up, to Jack Nicklaus, the golfer, and Jack, can I get 5 minutes with you? As if like but I'm not like, can I talk to you? Like it's just that confidence in this, and he sees it, and that, oh yeah, sure, whatever you need, but you have to raise your bar and like, but that big, like that eye contact, that like, look, man, like, that's huge. Don't be afraid to just like put it all out there. So
What's your greatest theory?
theory?
Uh-huh.
Explain. What do you mean by theory? Like
Whatever
motto, like like a motto I live by, or one that I've come up with.
whatever comes to your mind first.
So the two I would say is, um, I have everything and nothing to do today. That's where you want to be in life. You know, there are days where like sometimes I actually try and challenge myself and just like procrastinate so much that I put everything off to one day, so that it's like really difficult, and it's still never difficult. And then other days, like I'll wake up and I'll be like, you know what? Today's just going to be a day where I stay in bed, like, and that's what all I'm going to do. And I mean, I'm working from my phone, but like, I have it to where you have everything and nothing to do, and it's your call. That's, to me, like living the dream. The other thing that always motivated me was, Robert Frost, like, take the road less traveled, you know, um, and that's, like like I said, it's like a choose your own adventure book. It's, you know, I'm always going to pick the more exciting thing, within reason. I jumped off a bridge in Ecuador. I probably shouldn't have done that, you know, um, but it was there, and and I trust, in the universe. Like, if things feel bad, like if they're weird, like, and uneasy, then I'll step. It's like, I don't need to challenge myself. But when things just kind of line up, boy, I'll show you. See, I don't know if you can see it. That's the cover of my book. So
Mm-hmm.
that's in Ecuador, and that's a swing that goes off the edge of the cliff, and I'm afraid of heights. And but that's like the total, that represents my whole life, is that I'm afraid of heights, and then here I am, swinging through the air, because like it motivates me. It's like, as soon as I almost get annoyed, because it's like, crap, I'm afraid to do that. Now I really have to do it.
Now I gotta do it.
Yeah, yeah. So it's cool.
Is there anything about yourself that you think is an important part of who you are that we did not talk about today? In other words, what did I miss?
Mm, I don't think you missed anything. You know, it's funny. A lot of people, when they first encounter me, I won't even say meet me, but like just see me or something. Like I think that they get this impression that I'm an asshole, or like I'm intense or I'm serious, and I'm like either that or I'm half asleep. Like, because I'm just the most chill guy there is. Like, I don't get intense. I don't want to get intense, but I carry myself in a manner that, you know, kind of like the James Bond, like I'm always sizing it up. I'm always ready to, if a ninja pops out or something. Um, but but it's interesting because people will come at me sometimes and they'll be demanding or just jerks or whatever, and then their opinion of me is that I'm an asshole. And I'm like, you came at me, you're the asshole. I was like, I'm just not gonna be, a ray of sunshine. I call it's the tit for tat ratio. Whatever you present first, uh, that's what you're going to get. I'm not giving you extra, you know. But I definitely have always kind of felt like I was a pretty stoic person. But with that said, like, if anyone ever sees me, by all means, like, come up and say hello. Be nice, but I'm pretty approachable. So,
What's one question that specifically me should be asking, or specifically I should be asking specifically you with your experience, your knowledge, your wisdom, that I just wouldn't think to ask?
um, the question, I think that if you knew me, it would have, like, if you knew more about me, then it would be like, you know, what can I improve upon for my broadcasting, and like my interview techniques and my like delivery. Like basically like ask me to rip you a new one, like don't hold anything back. Um, with that said, we did a good job. So, yeah, I mean, I can trust me. I don't even watch like local TV newscasts or anything. Like I'm very picky when it comes to broadcasters. I actually spent 3 years coaching, like working at a media coach, like part time, and got a bunch of people on air. And it's like I was embarrassed by some of them, but yeah, what can you do? It's a What do you want to do? I mean, you're doing this podcast thing. What do you want to get from it?
I want to interview the whole world. I want to learn about everybody and travel. And I mean, I was telling you before, I just figured out how to do the live streaming to like 18 platforms at once. I'm trying to get it to where I can do it from my phone, but I want to go around the world and I want to interview people from every walk of life and every culture and in every country, every continent, and like just learn about everything and just understand more about the world and more about myself in the meantime, and have some fun while I'm doing it.
So if that's what your goal is, right? Um, I would say ask questions that you care about, like because you like I've watched some of your stuff, right? So you have these questions that you go to that you ask, and like almost like a soft script. The best thing, and I did some amazing stories as a sportscaster, you know, covered amazing things. The best thing for me now is when I go to the Super Bowl and I get to just talk to these guys. I don't have to ask them about the game. I don't have to ask them about defense or offensive plays or like anything really football related. Like there was one guy, he grew up 15 minutes away from where I grew up, and he was at the Super Bowl, and we kind of ran in similar circles, and so he's a lot younger than me, but like so I'm just talking to him about like the old playground and like how I played basketball with like his two uncles, like that was really cool for me. If I'm talking to when I talk to Ty Lopez, I've gone to Ty's house many times. Like he's never there now, but we used to watch like the NBA finals together. And I see with a guy like him, all these people, trying to be friends with them. And Ty, what do you think about what's the best strategy? What's like, but they're really not being friends. Like they're just picking at him, like for information, thinking that that's what he wants to talk about. Me and him, like we're talking about basketball and growing, like playing hoops in North Carolina, and you know, he's gotten to play with like a lot of cool players, but I got a lot of cool stories too. You know, you find like that's what's interesting. You know, um, when I did it, I've done interviews with him a couple times, and like my focus with him is always his motto about the good life, and that is so much more important to me than how do I make six figures, how do I start my own company, what books should I read them all. Start, he's got a list, like you can start there, but like there's, read the books that interest you. When I read a book a day for a year, just as a test, and I started running out of books that I wanted to read, and when I ran out, like I stopped reading, now I'll come back around and find new ones, but it's do what you want to do within reason, I think, and it's so crazy. It's like we do live in this world now, where you don't have to be a starving artist. Like every kid that's majoring in wasting $100,000 at LMU or USC down the street, like for their art degree, and they won't make any money. I'm like, you could start like your e-com business, like spend 4 hours a day making hotel plant paintings and sell them for like $20, and then spend the other 4 days making your abstract, gremlin painting. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a market for it. You can do all those things. Like you can, and when I get tired of something, I walked away from poker like that. I still play the World Series every summer because I want to see some of my friends and it's there, but I don't miss the game one bit. I don't miss sportscasting. I still do some stuff, but it's totally the way that I would want to do it. I don't have a boss telling me how to do it. I like the Airbnb. I like the social media stuff that I do. It's everything I do. It's like I don't have a day of work. I really don't. So,
why did you decide to come on to this interview today?
Because we get to talk about my favorite subject, myself.
Was it? Oh, I'm sorry. You go.
No. I've done interviews with like, some 18-year-old kids. I feel like if you're going to put the time and energy to set something up like this, and you have a reason you want to talk to me, I can't ever say no. I don't care how small it is, because there's nothing worse than being refused for an interview. I don't like Kevin Garnett because of that. Kevin Garnett made me wait 6 hours one time at one of his camps to interview him, and then he snuck out the back door on purpose, and I've heard he's a great guy, whatever, but like that's my personal experience with him. I'm not cool with that. I don't want to say no, like, and I think that people want to talk to me. People usually, they want to talk to me because there's some kind of value that they're going to get. And why would I live this life where I'm doing all this stuff if it wasn't really to pass it on to other people? Like I kind of feel like that was my life's purpose. Like you're going to go through all the fires of everything to show everyone else that it's possible. There's a kid right now that keeps messaging me on my bartending page, and he's moving out from Iowa to come to live in San Diego, and he's basically like dropped everything and like, I'm going for it. The kid's nice, and he text messages me every update, like through the app. Like, I've just reached Reno, just reached San Francisco, and I'm like, I don't need that, but you know, like, cool. I inspired him. My readers, all that stuff. You know, it's it's fun, right? Like, I like answering questions. People that don't like answering questions don't do the stuff that we do. They become accountants. I don't see many podcasts interviewing accountants. So
So, Jason, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on the interview today. Truly been a pleasure getting to speak with you and share this time with you. So, again, I want to say thank you.
Thanks, my man. Good to have you.
And to everybody who's watching and listening, no matter when you're watching and listening, I want to say thank you very much to y'all. And I love y'all. Y'all are the reason that I do this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'll see you on the next episode. Let's change the world.